Hello, welcome to the 5th International Conference on the Law of the Sea. This is day 2 of the 2020 conference, which is being held under the topic of regional cooperation and marine environmental protection under the UNCLOS regime. And I'm your MC for 2020 conference. My name is Hee-Jin Yu, and I'm a member of the Korean Society of International Law, KSIL. I'm here for the day 2 as well. We just watched a video prepared by the organizers. It throws some heartfelt, inspirational scenes, briefing on the history of the law of the sea, as well as the 5-year conference. And it also stressed the commitment for the marine environmental protection, which is the topic of this year's conference. I hope you enjoyed it. Yesterday, we had a busy day with the opening ceremony and 2 main sessions. We had insightful keynote speech by His Excellency Judge Paek Jin-hyun, and in-depth presentations and discussions under the topic of duty of cooperation under the UNCLOS regime for session 1, and under the topic of the regional cooperation for marine environmental protection for session 2. Today we have 3 main sessions. Today's first main session, session 3, is titled Regional Cooperation for Marine Scientific Research in the Overlapping Marine Area. Before I invite our moderator for session 3, I would like to remind you that this year's conference is being held in hybrid form. Partly it's being held in person in Seoul, Korea, and it's also being held virtually. Now, it is time to begin session 3. Session 3 is going to be moderated by Mr. Pemaraju Srivinasa Rao, Special Advisor to the State of Qatar. He's here with us, connected via online from Qatar. Dr. P.S. Rao, are you here with us?
Thank you very much for this opportunity for joining great friends and excellent scholars on a matter of very important significance to the international community, that is the regional cooperation in respect of the conduct of marine scientific research in overlapping or otherwise undelimited areas, maritime areas. And as far as the session's background and the kind of subjects that have been covered have already been introduced by our host. My job is now to invite each one of the speakers to come online and be with us and give us their best of their thoughts on the matter of promoting marine scientific research in general, and particularly in this area where South China Sea, North China Sea, East China Sea, etc., where you have a number of undelimited areas and issues concerning maritime jurisdictions. And given the uncertainty about the legal jurisdictions of individual countries, the problem concerning the conduct of marine scientific research becomes that much more important and sensitive. And our speakers have chosen to enlighten us on the problems that are involved in this thing, and some approaches by which we can take the matter further in the best interest of the community, of the people, states in the region as well as in the world, because marine scientific research has to be encouraged under all circumstances as far as possible, because oceans, as you know, constitutes 70% of the earth. And if we have still trying to learn about our life and the various interactions on the continental side, and we have yet to discover a lot more from the oceans, which is totally integrated these days in the current scenario of climate change, etc. Oceans play enormous role beyond merely resources. It used to be, as I remember, when I was a student of law of the sea way back in 60s and 70s, and I was a student, and I was also a fellow at the Marine Woodsole Oceanographic Institution in the United States as part of my marine policy program there after my doctorate at Yale in law of the sea. I noticed those days the issues were very different, even though there is a lot of excitement for us even then. But then today, the situation is totally different. There is only fishery resources were main attraction and main issues. And then thereafter, slowly and steadily, things have become much more complicated with non-living resources, with oil and gas resources. And then, of course, you have the more important thing about the climate change and the raising sea levels and marine pollution has become extraordinarily important issues, as the president of this conference yesterday said also. Given all this, I won't take more of your time. I would like to introduce first Dr. Kim Min-Chul from Yumin International Law Institute. He has an excellent paper to present on the issues concerning the South China, not China, in the particular area, as I said, in China, Japan, and Korea, all three are extensively conducting and capable of conducting high amount of quotient of research, and yet are finding it occasionally difficult in moving along some of these things because of the lack of jurisdictional clarity in terms of who should do what and when and what kind of activities have what impact on each other. So given that, I would now yield to Dr. Kim Min-Chul to guide us with his thoughts on the first opening space as an opening speaker. I give the floor to Dr. Kim Min-Chul. Please, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Rao, for the wonderful introduction of me. I'm happy to be here giving my presentation regarding the marine scientific research in undelimited maritime areas. My presentation will focus on whether an effective cooperation regime for MSR in Northeast Asia can be feasible, and how to set up such a regime in this region. My presentation will divide into 4 sections. First, let me show you why it is difficult to solve MSR disputes in undelimited waters. Then, I will briefly introduce Korea's MSR legislation and practice. And then, I will examine the regulatory issue of unilateral research or survey activities conducted in undelimited waters. Finally, I will make a suggestion about how to set up an effective MSR cooperation regime in Northeast Asia. As you know, MSR has increased the human's knowledge of the ocean. According to the definition of MSR suggested during the 3rd UN Conference on the Law of the Sea, MSR means any study or related experimental work designed to increase man's knowledge of the marine environment. Simply put, MSR is a good thing. But why is noise in reality? This is my first question. Originally, MSR was not considered as a major field of maritime activities. But as the development scientific technology started to giving greater importance to MSR, the consent regime in continental shelf was adopted in 1958 Convention on the Continental Shelf, and subsequently, similar consent regime was introduced to EEG as well as the continental shelf when UNCLOS was adopted. As you hear from me and speakers after me, coastal states tend to react sensitively to foreign states' research or survey activities in their overlapping waters. The problem is that such MSR-related disputes seem to be difficult to handle or settle. What makes such disputes hard to handle or settle? First of all, it's because there is no delimitation line at sea. It means the scope of national jurisdiction unclear in such waters. In absence of the fixed maritime area boundaries, the coastal states' maritime claims are overlapping, typically in the water, where the distance between the states is less than 400 nautical miles. In addition, if sovereign over maritime features is disputed between states, it becomes much more difficult to solve MSR dispute in such waters. The second cause is the ambiguous distinction between MSR and other marine information gathering activity. I divide this factor into two: normative uncertainty and practical difficulty distinguishing activities. First is normative uncertainty. MSR is not defined in UNCLOS, so there has been the continuing debate on the notion of MSR as well as the distinction between MSR and other activities such as hydrographic survey, military survey, operational oceanography, and so on forth. The other thing is a practical difficulty of distinction. Many states argue that the other activities such as hydrographic are governed to be governed by different regulation, but in real life, it is difficult to draw a line between these activities. One more aspect is that coastal states are concerned about the disguised activities of the researching states and its information monopoly. Also, there are some challenges arising from the advent of new marine information gathering tools, such as surface drifting buoys, profiling floats, underwater gliders, etc. Norms do not keep up with technological development, so there exists uncertainty on regulating these new activities. But despite such difficulties, we cannot expect that we will stop collecting the information on the ocean, considering the increasing demand for marine knowledge for many reasons. The Republic of Korea has ratified UNCLOS in 1996. And at that time, several domestic laws were enacted to implement UNCLOS, including Marine Scientific Research Act. As for the specific contents of the Korean Maritime Act, Korean MSR Act, please refer to this slide, and you can also access the full text by clicking the link below. Also, as for the legislation on other activities, I wish to replace my explanation by this slide. MSR is supposed to be conducted for good cause in terms of by enhancing human knowledge on the ocean. If that is the case, are unilateral research or survey activities in the undelimited waters going to be legal or illegal? If we can draw guidelines for this, we may shift or relax sensitive perception of such activities in undelimited waters. In order to assess the legality of unilateral activities in undelimited waters, we should review the obligation of cooperation and self-restraint under Articles 74.3 and 83.3 of UNCLOS. Here, according to these articles, pending final delimitation, the state concerned in a spirit of understanding and cooperation shall make every effort to enter into provisional arrangement of practical nature and during this transitional period not to jeopardize or hamper the reaching of the final agreement. In terms of the obligation of self-restraint, as noted in the second phrase, commentators have discussed which unilateral actions are allowed in undelimited waters or not. In this regard, there are some case laws to be mentioned. The first, the agency continental shelf case has much influenced today's interpretation of self-restraint obligation, though this case was before UNCLOS came in. In this case, Greece requested the ICJ to order to prohibit Turkey's unilateral seismic exploration conducted in undelimited waters between the two states. But in 1976, the court rejected Greece's request for interim protection, and the court emphasized Turkey's seismic exploration did not come under these three criteria on this slide: activities involving any risk of physical damage to the seabed, subsoil, and natural resources, activities of a non-transitory character such as the establishment installation, and activities involving the actual appropriation or other use of the natural resources of the areas in dispute. At that time, Turkey's seismic exploration was carried out by a vessel causing small explosion to send sound wave through the seabed. After the adoption of UNCLOS, in the Guyana-Suriname case, the Annex 7 Tribunal addressed the legality of unilateral activities in undelimited waters, applying Article 74.3 and 83.3 for the first time. In this case, Guyana was found to have violated the self-restraint obligation by authorizing exploratory drilling in disputed waters. And the tribunal pointed out that an activity having a permanent physical impact on the marine environment can be a violation of the self-restraint obligation. Looking at the tribunal's reasoning, this criterion was drawn from the above-mentioned Aegean Sea continental shelf case. However, in 2017, the ITROS Special Chamber in the Ghana Côte d'Ivoire case rendered rather different judgment. Here, I'd like to skip my detailed discussion on the majority opinion of this judgment. Instead, I want to focus on the separate opinion of Judge Jin Young Baek. Actually, as per the criterion on permanent physical impact on the marine environment, commentators have pointed out several limitations. For example, this criterion, they argue that this criterion is not suitable for assessing the regularity of unilateral activities for the rights over EEZ, such as fisheries. And they also claim that this criterion is not from the regular listening of Article 74.3 and 83.3, but from the consideration of a risk of irreparable prejudice for interim protection order. In this regard, I hope you to pay attention to the separate opinion of Judge Baek. I believe that it is important for critical views on permanent physical impact on the marine environment criterion to have been reviewed and officially recorded by an UNCLOS court. Judge Baek rightly pointed out that determination of what acts would cause irreparable prejudice to the rights and determination of what acts would have the effect of jeopardizing or hampering the reaching of the final agreements are different. And he added that in assessing a violation of the self-restraint obligation, several factors may be considered, such as the type, nature, location, and time of acts, as well as the manner in which they are carried out. Then, how can we assess the regularity of unilateral research or survey activities in undelimited waters? As noted in the opinion of Judge Beck, we can say that in principle, various factors ought to be considered, and there is no single criterion that should be applied in all situations. But in my opinion, given the existing case law and UNCLOS regime for MSR, pure MSR activities for fiscal purposes and information gathering activities within the purview of freedom of the seas are not likely to violate self-restraint obligation under Articles 74.3 and 83.3. And in terms of so-called applied MSR, a case-by-case approach is necessary. In this sense, I will ask again, is it necessary for coastal states to react sensitively to foreign states' unilateral research or survey activities in unlimited waters? Although my approach has something to do with theoretical analysis in terms of the self-restraint obligation, I argue that if we go back to the original spirit of MSR and perceive UNCLOS regime, according to drafter's intention, the sensitivity surrounding the MSR disputes can be lowered. Then a question arises. Is it feasible to have an effective cooperation regime in Northeast Asia? What reasonable measures do we need in order to build a cooperative MSR regime in this region? On this slide, you may find the current legal status in Northeast Asia. And there are many issues to overcome, as you see on this slide, in order to diffuse conflicts and enhance cooperation. Now, to this end, I'd like to present some prerequisites to be achieved. Above all, we need to remove the causes making MSR disputes complicated. The first thing is preventing the incompleteness of MSR norms. In light of the controversy over the applicability of the MSR rules to other activities, it is desirable to build a certain uniform practice or common positions in regulating MSR and other activities, at least at a regional level. The second thing is securing transparency to minimize concerns of disguised activities and information monopoly. Despite normative supplementation, states will still could have concern about disguised activity, especially military purposes, as well as information monopoly. Such worries can be reduced by promoting publication or dissemination of scientific information acquired by the researching site and encouraging joint researches. The third is shifting perception of MSR activities from emphasizing national jurisdiction to promoting regional cooperation. This has something to do with psychological aspects. As for a modus vivendi, we can consider these three approaches. First is a linear approach, which means prior notification or consent granting regime based on provisional boundary line. Second is a zonal approach, which means that state can conduct MSR freely or jointly in agreed zone. The last thing is cooperation regime through international institution. In this option, MSR is conducted by or under the auspice of independent international organizations without establishing a particular line or zone. Summarizing my presentation, I suggest three-step approach. At the first stage, we should realize the actual causes and complexity of MSR disputes in undelimited waters. And at the second step, we should remove the causes of disputes at a regional level by supplementing the incompleteness of MSR norm, securing transparency, and shifting perception of MSR activities. At the final stage, we should design an effective cooperation framework without the effect of prejudicing the final delimitation. Of particular importance, we need to bear in mind that we all have to make constant effort for building the momentum of cooperation and maintaining it through close communication and joint research practice at a governmental level as well as at a non-governmental level. Thank you for kind attention.
Thank you very much for that excellent presentation. The points made by the Dr. Kim are worthy of serious consideration. All the 3 steps he has been identified towards the end of his lecture to take the matter forward in the interest of conducting a more enlightened marine scientific research, and more often for the benefit of the international community are welcome. And we will of course have a discussion on some of these things after we hear the other speakers also.